Hello, my friends, and welcome to Storium. I'm so happy you're here with me today. Take a deep, slow breath. Let your shoulders relax. Clear your mind, and let's travel back in time together. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine this. You are standing on the edge of a river. The water is dark, icy cold, and rushing past in the silence of the night. Behind you is everything you have ever known. Your home, your family, your comfort, your safe and familiar life. But on the opposite bank lies something very different. A future filled with uncertainty, danger, and endless possibility. You have only one choice. Do you stay where it is safe? Or do you step forward into the unknown? This was not an imaginary river. It was real. It was called the Rubicon. And more than 2,000 years ago, on a cold January night, one man stood on its banks. He looked at the dark water. He looked at the soldiers who trusted him. Then he made a decision that would change history forever. His name was Julius Caesar. And this is his extraordinary story. Our story begins in 100 BC. The letters BC mean before Christ, before the birth of Jesus. In the powerful city of Rome, a baby boy was born into one of the oldest and most respected families in the Republic. His name was Gaius Julius Caesar. Rome was very different from the world we know today. It was a republic, not a kingdom. Instead of being ruled by a king, Rome was governed by elected leaders and a powerful group of men known as the Senate. It was inside the Senate that the most important decisions about war, peace, and the future of Rome were made. Although Caesar's family had noble blood and a famous name, they were not especially rich. He grew up in a modest home in one of Rome's busy neighborhoods. There was nothing remarkable about the house. But there was something remarkable about the young boy living inside it. From an early age, Caesar stood out. He was curious, intelligent, and incredibly ambitious. He loved reading. He loved writing. He studied history, philosophy, and public speaking. And whenever he stood up to speak, people listened. But above all else, Caesar possessed one quality that would shape every chapter of his life. He was fearless. That courage would carry him through triumph, danger, and eventually tragedy. When Caesar was about 25 years old, the world got its first glimpse of just how fearless he really was. While sailing across the Aegean Sea on his way to study in Greece, his ship was surrounded by pirates. They boarded the vessel, captured Caesar, and held him prisoner. The pirates knew he came from a noble Roman family, so they planned to demand a ransom. A ransom is money paid in exchange for someone's freedom. After talking among themselves, they decided to ask for 20 talents of silver, a fortune by ancient standards. But Caesar's reaction stunned them. He laughed. Then he looked directly at the pirates and said, "Only 20 talents? You clearly don't know who I am. You should be asking for 50. The pirates could hardly believe what they were hearing. Their own prisoner was telling them they had asked for too little money. But Caesar wasn't joking. He truly believed he was worth 50 talents of silver, and he wanted everyone else to believe it too. While messengers traveled to collect the ransom, Caesar behaved in the most unexpected way. He didn't act like a frightened prisoner. He acted as though he were an honored guest. Every day he exercised on the ship. He wrote poems and speeches, then gathered the pirates and read his work aloud to them. If they didn't applaud loudly enough, he mocked them for having poor taste. And almost every day he made the same promise. Smiling calmly, he told them, "When I am free, I will come back, and I will crucify every one of you." To be crucified meant being nailed to a wooden cross, a brutal execution used throughout the ancient world. The pirates laughed every time. To them, Caesar was simply an arrogant young Roman making impossible threats. They had no idea they were listening to a promise. Eventually, the ransom arrived, and Caesar was released. Most people would have hurried home after such an experience. Caesar did the exact opposite. He went straight to the nearest port, gathered a small fleet of ships, and sailed back into the sea in search of the pirates. He found them, he captured them, and he carried out exactly what he had promised. Every one of the pirates was crucified. News of the incredible story spread quickly throughout Rome. People realized something they would never forget. Julius Caesar was not a man who made empty promises. When he gave his word, he followed through, no matter how impossible it seemed. But there was one more thing people quickly learned about Julius Caesar. He never forgot. If someone betrayed him, he remembered. If he made a promise, he kept it. And once he set his mind on something, almost nothing could stop him. After dealing with the pirates, Caesar returned to Rome. But he wasn't interested in living a quiet life. He had much bigger dreams. Instead of slowing down, he threw himself into politics. Caesar was intelligent, confident, and incredibly charming. More importantly, he understood people. He knew that if he wanted to change Rome, he needed the support of ordinary citizens, not just the wealthy and powerful. So he spent time among the people. He organized public festivals and celebrations. He often paid for them with his own money, earning the admiration of thousands of Romans. People saw him as generous, approachable, and different from many of the politicians of his time. Little by little, year after year, Caesar climbed the political ladder. He served as a lawyer, then held several important public offices, and eventually became one of Rome's most respected leaders. Then, in 59 BC, he reached one of the highest positions in the Roman Republic. He was elected consul, one of the 2 men chosen each year to lead Rome. For many people, that would have been the greatest achievement of their lives. But for Julius Caesar, it was only the beginning. Politics had given him influence. Now he wanted something even greater. He wanted glory on the battlefield. That opportunity arrived when he was appointed commander of the Roman armies in Gaul, a vast region that includes much of modern-day France and Belgium. What happened next would make him one of the greatest military commanders in history. For the next 8 years, Caesar led his legions through forests, mountains, rivers, and open plains, fighting one campaign after another. His victories were not just the result of strength. They were the result of brilliant strategy. He moved his armies faster than anyone expected. He built massive wooden bridges across powerful rivers in just a few days, when experienced engineers believed the job would take weeks. He struck before his enemies were ready. Even when he was outnumbered, even when the weather was against him, even when defeat seemed certain, Caesar found a way to win. His soldiers trusted him completely because he always led from the front, and victory after victory made his reputation grow. One of his most famous triumphs was so swift that he described it in just 3 Latin words. Veni, vidi, vici. I came, I saw, I conquered. Simple words, but they perfectly captured the speed and confidence with which he defeated his enemies. By the end of 8 years, nearly all of Gaul was under Roman control. Caesar carefully recorded these campaigns in a book called the Gallic Wars, a work that historians and students still read more than 2,000 years later. His soldiers admired him. The people celebrated him. His fame spread across the Roman world. But not everyone was celebrating. Back in Rome, powerful senators were growing nervous. Every victory made Caesar stronger. Every success made him more popular. And every cheering crowd made his political enemies more afraid. Among those who turned against him was Pompey, once one of Caesar's closest allies. The friendship that had helped shape Roman politics slowly fell apart. Eventually, the Senate sent Caesar a direct order. He was to dismiss his army and return to Rome alone as an ordinary citizen. On the surface, it sounded reasonable, but Caesar understood what it really meant. Without his army, he would have no protection. His enemies would arrest him, put him on trial, and destroy everything he had spent years building. He faced an impossible choice: obey the Senate, or defy it and risk civil war. In January 49 BC, Caesar and his army arrived at the banks of a small river in northern Italy. Its name was the Rubicon. To most people, it looked like an ordinary river, but in Roman law, it marked a sacred boundary. No Roman general was allowed to cross it with an army. Doing so was considered an open declaration of war against Rome itself. Caesar stood silently beside the river. His soldiers waited. The night was cold. The water flowed quietly beneath the moonlight. He knew that one step forward would change his life forever. He also knew there would be no way back. After a long silence, Caesar finally spoke. The decision is made. There's no going back. Then he stepped forward. His soldiers followed. The moment they crossed Rubicon, history changed forever. There was no turning back, only the road ahead. News spread through Rome almost immediately. Pompey and many senators fled the city in panic. Caesar marched into Rome without resistance. What followed was a brutal civil war, battle after battle. Caesar defeated every army sent against him. Within just a few years, he stood as the undisputed ruler of the Roman world. He was appointed dictator. Today, the word dictator has a very negative meaning, but in ancient Rome, it originally referred to a legal office. During times of great crisis, one man could be given complete authority to solve urgent problems quickly. Normally, that power lasted only a few months. Caesar's did not. He was declared dictator perpetuo, dictator for life, now holding more power than any Roman before him. Caesar began transforming the Republic. He introduced the Julian calendar, whose design still influences the calendar we use today. He reduced debt. He rewarded his loyal soldiers with land. He launched major building projects across Rome. He expanded Roman citizenship to people throughout the growing Republic. His goal was not simply to rule Rome. He wanted to rebuild it. But the more powerful Caesar became, the more frightened his enemies grew. Many senators became convinced that he wanted to crown himself king. And to the Romans, no title was more dangerous. Nearly 500 years earlier, Rome had overthrown its last king and sworn never to be ruled by one again. So a secret conspiracy began. Its members believed there was only one way to save the Republic. Caesar had to die. On March 15th, 44 BC, the famous Ides of March, Caesar walked into the Senate house. Friends had warned him not to go. Rumors of danger filled the city. But Caesar ignored them. He believed the senators around him were still loyal. He was wrong. As the meeting began, the conspirators surrounded him. Hidden beneath their robes were sharp knives. Then, without warning, they attacked. Again, and again, and again. In total, 23 senators stabbed Julius Caesar. Among them stood Brutus, a man Caesar loved and trusted almost like a son. According to tradition, Caesar looked at him with disbelief and quietly whispered, "And you, Brutus?" Then he collapsed. He was 55 years old. With Caesar's death, the Roman Republic entered its final chapter. Years of civil war followed. Eventually, Caesar's adopted son, Octavian, defeated every rival and became Augustus, the first emperor of Rome. The Roman Empire had begun. It would dominate much of Europe, North Africa, and the Middle East for centuries. Yet, perhaps Caesar's greatest legacy was not an empire. It was his name. His name became a title for rulers across Europe. In German, an emperor became a Kaiser. In Russian, a ruler became a Tsar. Both words come directly from one name, Caesar. Few people in history have left such a lasting mark on the world. And so, my friends, the story of Julius Caesar comes to an end. He was born into a respectable but ordinary household. He dreamed bigger than anyone expected. He faced pirates without fear. He conquered lands that seemed impossible to conquer. He crossed a river that changed history. And in the end, he fell at the hands of those who feared his greatness. Was Caesar a perfect man? No, he was ambitious, sometimes ruthless. His wars in Gaul cost countless lives, and history continues to debate many of his choices. History is rarely simple, but there is one lesson from Caesar's life that still speaks to us today. The greatest moments in life often begin when we find the courage to cross our own Rubicon. Think about your own journey for a moment. Maybe your Rubicon was deciding to learn English. Maybe it was speaking English for the first time. Maybe it was pressing play on this video today. Every meaningful journey has a moment when you stop standing safely on the shore and choose to move forward. When you quietly tell yourself, the decision is made, there is no going back. Learning English has its own Rubicon, and I believe you've already crossed it, because you're here, you're listening, you're improving, one story at a time, one sentence at a time, one new word at a time. Julius Caesar crossed a river and changed history. You are crossing a language and changing your future, and that is something truly extraordinary. So keep listening, keep learning, and never stop moving forward. Thank you for spending this time with me here on Storium. If you enjoyed Caesar's incredible story, I'd love to hear from you. Which part amazed you the most? Was it the fearless encounter with the pirates, the legendary crossing of the Rubicon, or the shocking betrayal on the Ides of March? Leave your answer in the comments below. There are many more fascinating stories waiting for you here. Until next time, my friend, take care of yourself, keep your curiosity alive, and never stop learning.